All right. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just having a little bit of a technical difficulty with Zoom. Okay. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. So welcome tonight to how to buy an out-of-state short-term rental and operate it from a completely different state remotely. My name is Megan Blythe. I'm a realtor here in Colorado. Grew up in Southwest Colorado in Durango. I went to school in Northern Colorado in Fort Collins. I now live in the Denver metro area and split my time between Denver and Breckenridge. So I'm kind of all over the state, been in the state for a long time and familiar with the entire state of Colorado. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can find a property completely remotely and actually launch a short-term rental without ever seeing the property if you want to. Would I advise that? Maybe not. Some people do it, but it's possible. So that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So what I will cover tonight. First things first, we're going to talk about how to purchase and where to invest. So this is going to be the short-term rental friendly areas in the state of Colorado, where you can invest in the state of Colorado, what price point you're going to be looking at for those properties, how much revenue to expect, and then how to be successful in those markets. The next thing I'm going to talk about is building a team. If you're going to be running a short-term rental property remotely, you're going to need a team that helps you. That's your boots on the ground. Next thing I'll be talking about is lifestyle investing. So how can you buy a property out of state that you get to enjoy and also get to use? So can you buy a property that works for you as a short-term rental and makes you money, and can you also go use it with your family? And then finally, operating remotely. So what you'll need to operate completely remotely. I always say if you have a short-term rental, it doesn't matter if it's a mile down the street or 1,000 miles away, it should be running the exact same. There's absolutely no reason why you can't buy a property far away from you and have it running in tip-top shape. All right, so finding a property from out of state. The first thing you're going to have to do is determine which area is right for you. You may or may not be familiar with Colorado at all, and that's okay. I'm here to help you. So you'll need to determine which area is right for you. If you want a property in the mountains, if you want a property in the Denver metro area, the characteristics of what you want, how much cash flow you want, how much money you're willing to spend, all those things are important. You'll need to connect with an investor-friendly agent, because when you're looking at these things from out of state, you need boots on the ground that are familiar with the areas, familiar with what's going on, and not only in the real estate market, but also in the short-term rental market and what it takes to create a successful short-term rental in today's environment. And you'll start doing you will start doing showings remotely. So what I do with a lot of my clients is I will go and look at properties for them. I'll FaceTime them while I'm at the property. I'll tell them about anything that you can't see with your own eyes through a screen, like any smells or anything weird in the area, to get eyes on the property and boots on the ground. And then you'll offer and close. All right, so let's get into some areas in the state of Colorado that are short-term rental friendly. This is a very large list. There are more areas than this, but I cannot go over every single micro area in this presentation. It would take a long time. So in this map, I have mountains and then I have metro areas as well. So if you're looking for a property in the Denver metro area, there are several different options that you can look for. What we call is the friendly side of the metro is typically the west side of the metro. And you have areas like Arvada, Westminster, North Glen, District 3 and 4 of Wheat Ridge, which is very close to Denver, unincorporated Adams County, which is the city of Denver, but the county of Adams County. And then Castle Rock, Monument, Larkspur, and Cascade are some areas just south of the Denver metro area in between Colorado Springs and Denver. Now, the reason I don't mention Denver proper is because you cannot have a short-term rental property in the city and county of Denver unless it is your primary residence. So a lot of people, from out of state, they're like, why would anyone want to stay in Arvada or North Glen or Wheat Ridge? Well, the answer is you can't have a short-term rental property legally in Denver unless it's your primary residence. So there's not a ton of short-term rentals that can accommodate large groups or that are strictly short-term rental properties. There's a lot of like house hacking situations where people may rent out part of their house, like a room or a little unit in their house, and they live there primarily, or they live in the house primarily and they may leave a couple weekends, a couple times a year, and rent their house when they're gone. But there's not properties that are set up to be full-time short-term rentals really in Denver. So that pushes demand outside of Denver. And you will find that people who come to stay in Denver will stay in these other areas because they're still within 15, 20 minutes of the city center. And you can find a house that'll sleep 15 to 20 people. It's hard to find that in the city of Denver. So those are the areas in the Denver metro and kind of in between Denver and Colorado Springs that are friendly towards short-term rental. Now, if we get out towards the mountains, there's a lot going on. The way regulations work in Colorado is every city, every county has different regulations. There's not one blanket short-term regulation across the entire state. And so you have to know really specifically at the areas that you're looking at when you're looking for short-term rental properties, because in some of these communities, you might be able to be on one side of the street and be able to legally short-term rent. And on the other side of the street, you cannot short-term rent. So it's really important that you're working with somebody who knows these areas and is familiar with the regulations in the state, because you don't want to accidentally buy a property in an area that you can't legally short-term rent in. So as I get into the mountains, there's two mountain markets in the state of Colorado. So we have our foothills area and our non-ski mountain market, and then we have our ski resort areas. So in the foothills of Denver and Colorado Springs, that is our non-ski mountain market, as I call it, the rural mountain market. And the areas that are friendly towards short-term rental are Park County. So that's like Bailey, Jefferson, Fairplay, Boulder County, Cascade County, Teller County, Grand Junction. Also Jefferson County is not on this list, but they're friendly as well. And then in the ski resort areas, we have Summit County. So think like where everyone goes on a ski vacation. Breckenridge, Silverthorne, Dillon, Copper, Keystone, that's Summit County for you. And then out near Vail, we have Vail, Avon, Beaver Creek, in the Vail area. And then a little further west, we have the Roaring Fork Valley, which is Glenwood Springs all the way to Aspen. And you have Glenwood Springs, Carbondale, Basalt, Aspen, and Snowmass, where you can legally short-term rent there. And then we also have Grand County, which is Winter Park, Fraser, Grand Lake, that area. There's also some honorable mentions here that aren't on this list. There are some areas that they might be capped out in licenses, or they have kind of weird regulation, but you can buy a property with an existing license. And like one of those areas is Estes Park. So there's a lot of opportunity to buy short-term rentals in the state of Colorado. You just have to know where to look, and you have to be really specific about it. All right. So further elaborating on those areas, what you can afford is likely going to determine what you end up buying, because some of these areas, specifically the ski towns, can get really, really expensive. Now, that being said, there's opportunity for higher revenue in some of these areas at a higher price point, because you are able to command a higher nightly rate with a nicer property. So sometimes it does make sense to buy a more expensive property in some of these areas, but depending on what you want to spend, that will dictate where you can invest. So if you're looking at a lower price point, about $500,000 to $850,000 here in the state of Colorado, if you're from another state, that might be higher or lower than your average price point, depending on where you are. You're going to be looking at a startup cost of about $20,000 to $80,000 and an annual revenue of $80,000 to $125,000 a year. And some of those areas that you can access with this price point of $500,000 to $850K is going to be most of the metro area. You should be able to buy a short-term rental in almost any friendly area in the Denver metro area at that price point. You will also have access to the rural mountain market. So that's going to be the foothills of Denver and Boulder and also Colorado Springs. And that'll be like Bailey, Fairplay, unincorporated Boulder County, Teller County, Jefferson County, unincorporated Park County, maybe Grand County as well. So at the 750 to 1.5 million price point, you can kind of start to break into ski towns. You're going to be looking at a startup cost of at least 60 to 120K and an annual revenue that's higher than the other price point of 120 to 200K. And the areas this will open up will be Grand Lake, Granby, Tabernash, Glenwood Springs, and also some single family homes, maybe in Summit County, some other places. Now at the 1.2 million price point and higher, you're looking at a startup cost of about $75,000 to $150,000 a year, annual revenue of around 175.
What?
And
Want to hear a weird creepy fact about your brain?
No, I'm listening to a video. I'm literally watching. You can send it to me. I'll look at it later.
can you please mute your mic, please, Micah?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much. Okay, so at that price point, that's going to open up most of the state of Colorado for you. So Silverthorne, Blue River, Basalt, Carbondale, Crested Butte, Avon, Beaver Creek, Vale, Edwards, Dillons, those ski towns that you're probably familiar with. Breckenridge is another one. I don't know why I don't have that on there. If you're from out of state and you're maybe coming here on vacation, those are the places that you're maybe going to vacation at and you're familiar with. All right. So when you start looking, there's a few different things that I do for clients to help clients learn about short-term rental, to learn about the state of Colorado, to learn about how to analyze an investment property. And as you're looking for properties, these are things that we start to talk about. So the first thing that I do when we're looking at properties and we determine whether or not a property is going to be a good investment is I create what's called a pro forma for you. So I will take the price of the property. I'll let you know what it's going to cost in terms of your initial investment, how much it's going to cost to get up and running to be a functional STR, how much revenue you can expect from that property. And how I do that is that I use comps from a platform called AirDNA and also Profit Maps, which is a different platform. And we'll take active short-term rentals in that area that are similar to the property that you're looking at. And we use those comps to determine what your revenue for this property should be. When you're learning about short-term rental, it can be like drinking from a fire hose, especially if you've never had an introduction to it before. So one thing that we offer our clients is a short-term rental pro course. And this includes hours and hours of video, of PDF, for you to learn basically like short-term rental 101. So you can get better at analyzing properties, figuring out what drives revenue, all those things with this course. It's free for our clients. And it's just one of the other resources that we have for them as well. Now, talking about what drives revenue in Colorado. In the metro and in the mountains, there are things that overlap on what drives revenue, and there are things that are separate as well. So if you're looking for a property in the city, the proximity to city offerings is going to be important. So how close are you to things that people come to Colorado to travel for? So that's going to be like Red Rocks, sports venues, Meow Wolf, downtown Denver, conventions, things like that. How close are you to those things? your design and your photography. This is the same in the metro and mountains. It is not 2015 anymore. You cannot just put up any property on Airbnb and make money. You need to pay a designer or put a lot of thought and intent into your design to design a property that is specifically for your guest avatar and is set up specifically for short-term rental. And you need to have really good photos of that property, or else you will just not stand out on the platform. Another thing that both is important to both markets is your amenities. So in the Denver metro, we see that certain amenities drive a lot higher revenue. One of them that you wouldn't really think about is a golf simulator. I have a client with a house. It's not the nicest house, but he has a golf simulator. And because he's one of the only properties with that in the Denver metro area, he gets insane amounts of revenue and bookings for that house. And it's only, it's not like the greatest house in the world. Also, the size of your property. So in the metro area, it's kind of like the larger the bedroom, or the larger the better. If you want to get a property that can sleep 16 to 20 people, that's great. You want to get as big as possible. In the mountains, the size of your property also matters. You don't want a 2-bedroom condo in the mountains. That's what everyone has. But if you can get a property, a single family home in the mountains, that's going to be a lot better than a condo. Also, your unique properties and offerings in the mountains. People love A-frames, they love domes, they love things that are different. And especially from something that you see on a regular basis, that really drives revenue as well. In the metro, your bedroom count is important. Your gathering spaces are important. So you want to have spaces for people to have game rooms and movie rooms, maybe a gym. All these amenities, they're important. And then also in the metro, hosting events and retreats, maybe corporate retreats. Maybe somebody's coming for a bachelorette party, you let them have a hibachi person come to the house, things like that. In the mountains, mountain views are very important. Your proximity to skiing, fishing, hiking, national parks, all of that. Once again, hitting on unique properties. The single family home is really important. And then also your septic size. In Colorado, your septic system in the mountains is what determines how many people can sleep in your property. So having a larger septic size means sleeping more people, which means driving more revenue. All right, so once you find your property, you buy it, you close, the real work begins. And what you are going to have to do if you're out of state is build a team to help you get this property up and running and keep running. So who are you going to need on that team? One is going to be your realtor, your boots on the ground when you're finding your property, getting you through the purchase price and getting you through the purchase process and getting you to closing. The second is going to be a property manager if you decide you want one. I have plenty of clients that manage from out of state and they don't use a property manager. Fun fact. Third will be a contractor. So does the house that you buy need any renovations to it before you get it ready for a short-term rental? A designer and installer. We have designers that we work with here in the state of Colorado that'll come and look at your property, design it, send you the design, and then come and install everything. You literally never have to set foot in the property. You just have to approve the design, pay them the money, they go, they buy all the furniture, they put everything together. Boom, your property is ready for your photographer. You'll need a handyman, cleaners, and then lawn care, snow removal, hot tub people. These are the people that are in there day in, day out, fixing things when they need to be fixed, doing cleans when they need to be clean, taking care of the things and running your operations for you. And if you have a short-term rental friendly realtor, they should have these connections. I have all these connections for my clients. They're not having to wonder, hey, where do I find these people to help me do these things? Because I can connect them to someone. So looking at lifestyle investments from out of state, I think very commonly I see people who live outside of the state of Colorado and they want to buy something in Colorado because they like coming here on vacation. And the great thing about buying a short-term rental property in another state is that you can have a property that makes you money that you can also use for a couple weeks of the year with your family, and it'll cover the cost of your vacation. So if you find a property that breaks even or makes you money, but then you get to come and you get to use it, it covers the cost of your personal use. It can also be a great investment if you want a second home and give you really good tax benefits. There's a whole nother webinar that could be had on tax benefits. I won't go into it right now in detail, but short-term rentals provide really great tax breaks, especially if you aren't a business owner, if you have a W-2. If you're interested in this, you can send me an email at the end of the presentation with the subject line tax benefits, and I'll send you a webinar on the tax benefits of short-term rentals. You can also buy a home as an investment and know eventually that you might retire there, or it'll be a primary residence for you. And in the meantime, it can generate income and tax benefits for you while you're not living there. All right. So can you set up an STR from out of state? The answer is yes. And I've seen plenty of clients do it all the time. And this is going back to what I was talking about earlier on building a team. What you need is a setup team. So that's going to be your designer, the person who installs it, an install team, and then your photographer. So they will go, your designer walks the property, makes a 360-degree picture of it, does the design, you approve it, and then some designers have installer teams and some don't. But I have installer teams that are separate from them, and we'll do this anyways. So once your design is done, your furniture is all ordered, then you get your installer in there, and they will go and they'll install anything that you need, all your furniture, wallpaper, paint, whatever, get it photography ready, and then you get a photographer out and they take your pictures, and then you have what you need to get the property functional. Now, you might need some other things, right? If you're never going to come see this property and you want to do it completely remotely. So you'll probably need someone to come and stock it with linens and, glasses and coffee and toilet paper. And guess what? I have someone for that too. So yes, you can completely set up a short-term rental remotely from out of state and never set foot in the property. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, that's great, cool, but can I manage it from out of state? And the answer is also yes. And that is, once again, going back to your team. So your main point of contact for your team is probably going to be your cleaner, because your cleaner is going to be the person other than you if you're there, on a regular basis, which probably won't be if you live out of state. Your cleaner will be there the most regularly. They will be the ones coming through after every guest, making sure everything is good. They'll let you know if anything is broken, if anything needs to be replaced, etc. That a handyman. So if something breaks, you just need to know who to call. A landscaper and snow removal as well. In the summer, you're going to need somebody to mow your grass. In the winter, if we get a lot of snow, you're going to need somebody to take care of that snow. Also, if you have a hot tub, you're going to need somebody to take care of that hot tub. The difference between being here in Denver and managing a property here in Denver versus being in Texas and managing the property from Texas is really not that different. You just have to pick up the phone and know who to call and tell them to get to your property and fix what needs to be fixed, or take away snow, treat your hot tub, whatever. So what parts of the business can you run remotely versus what parts need to be done manually? So the great thing about living in 2025 is all the technology and the AI that we have. And there has been a lot of things that have come out for short-term rentals. So there's so many things that you can automate now in short-term rental management that you can literally be spending as little as like 1 to 2 hours a week running a short-term rental. Those things are dynamic pricing. There's software now, Price Labs, Wheelhouse, etc. You put some parameters in the software, it connects to Airbnb, and it sets all your pricing for you. And it knows holidays, it knows when things are of high demand. It isn't smart enough to know like local things like concerts or basketball games. Sometimes you'll have to go and like add an override for that, but a lot of that is automated. You get the pricing software, you maybe tweak it like 10 minutes a week, and it does its thing. You also set up automated messaging. So all of my messages with all my instructions to my guests run remotely. They go out, I don't think about it. And then if a guest messaged me with a question, then I can respond. But there's now also AI messaging. So you can set this up so that if a guest has a question, you can have AI respond to them. And you can also automate your cleaning. So every time I get a booking, my cleaner gets notified. I don't have to notify them. They know when my checkout is, they know when my check-in is, they go, they show up to the property, they do their thing. I never have to do anything of it. And you can also have your cleaners notify you to restock supplies. And what you can do is just like every month or so, order the supplies that you're going to need every month. So like toilet paper, coffee, paper towels, shampoo, whatever, just to get delivered to your property every month. So you know that you have them, and then your cleaners restock them for you. Manually, there are some manual things that you will have to do when you're setting up a short-term rental. So that's going to be your listing creation on Airbnb and VRBO. Manually setting up the listings, adding the photos, writing the description, all of that. Sometimes you will have to answer one-off guest questions, even if you have AI responding to them. AI might not have the answer. And also picking up the phone and coordinating contractors when there's maintenance or repairs that are needed. And of course, you can outsource any of these things. So how can Good Neighbor help you in your short-term rental journey? So first of all, we have lots of resources for investors. We have a podcast. This QR code here goes to our podcast if you're interested in it. Talks all about learning about STR and every single facet that you can imagine. And we help you from purchase to launch and make sure that you are successful thereafter. So I wear a lot of hats. I wear my realtor hat when I'm helping you find a property and buy the property. I wear my investor hat when we are analyzing properties. I wear like my mentor hat when you are launching your property and it's your first one, and we're figuring out the ways to make you the most revenue and how to make you successful. And I wear my educator hat throughout the process to teach you about STR. So I will help you from before we acquire the property to after you acquire it and once you are running, and help you make sure that you're successful and run a successful STR even after the purchase is done. So these are also the other things that we offer to our clients. So we have monthly events, whether they are webinars or in person, and we have a huge community around short-term rental where you can meet other people who are actively doing this and being successful at it. We have our short-term rental pro course, which is like short-term rental 101, which can be applied to literally any short-term rental market across the country, not just Colorado. We do investment property underwriting, I have buyer's guides, I have seller's guides, we have a podcast, we have AirDNA access for the entire country for all of our clients. And then we have STR specific contractors and vendors to help you build that team for operating your short-term rental from out of state. The other thing that we have for our clients is a lot of off-market properties that are turnkey, fully furnished short-term rentals that are being sold that you can pick up easily, and you don't have to do a lot of the setup stuff. You can just start operating. So I have an example of a Mountain STR that we have for sale off market right now, and a Metro one. This one is in Blackhawk. It's priced at $850,000. It includes all the furniture, amenities. It's doing about $115,000, $120,000 a year in revenue. And then this one is Harmony House in Arvada. It's priced at $810,000. Also includes furniture, amenities, whatever, is doing about just over $100,000 in revenue as well. And we have many more off-market properties. If you are interested in taking our short-term rental course, and maybe you don't want to buy a short-term rental in Colorado, but you want to buy one elsewhere in the country, this is a great way to get started. We also sell our short-term rental course if you are not going to buy a short-term rental in the state of Colorado. All right. So that is all on the presentation. I'll now open it up to questions. If you're not comfortable asking a question on the webinar, or it's something, personal that you don't think you want to share, you can email me or text me. I'm happy to answer your questions there as well, and I'll open it up for questions. All right. Oh, I see some stuff in the chat. So I see a question from Tori. Do we have access to the resources if we purchase a property with you, or can we work with you to set up our current property with hopes of purchasing another? Tori, I will send you an email and we can talk about that. Micah asks, what is the platform that integrates with AI? I think he's referring to the AI messages. That is Hospitable, which is a property management platform, and they have an AI integration that you can purchase, and that will respond to your guests' messages for you. How does payment work? What percentage of fee do we pay you for all these services? So I am paid just like a regular realtor. Although I do a lot of things that regular realtors don't do. So if you're working with me as a buyer's agent, typically what we find and have been finding in the state of Colorado recently is that sellers 9 times out of 10 will pay my commission. And are there any other questions? Either in the chat or out loud? What about the design? I have how do designers get paid? The handyman, you pay designers, handyman, all those people that are your contractors, you pay them directly for the services that they give you while you're operating. Christina asked what's included in the startup costs. So when I'm looking at analyzing investment properties, when we're looking at startup costs, we're looking at your down payment, we're looking at what it's going to cost if you need to renovate the property, we're looking at what it's going to cost you to pay a designer, what it's going to cost you to pay for furniture, what it's going to cost you to pay for hot tubs, amenities, photographies. Pretty much we are looking at every single cost that you're going to need in order to get your property up and running and functioning as a full STR, and we are accounting for those. We're accounting for your monthly bills, like your utilities, what you're paying for landscaping, what you're paying for property management software as well. All right, so if there are no further questions, I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting. Once again, if you had a question that you feel is a little more personal, feel free to text me or email me. I'll happily answer it for you. And Christina asked if I will send this presentation out. Yes, I will do a follow-up email that sends out the recorded presentation. And thank you all for joining tonight, and have a good night.